Last time, episode 11, Horsemen of the Apocalypse. We had traveled to a mine because we were told one of the new inventions in this world is a sort of simulator where we can battle any sort of monster that can kind of be found in, say, the monster manual in preparation to work on our teamwork, work on certain strategies in preparation for this horrible horseman that is coming. So, in the first episode of this campaign, we battled an ancient red dragon and we defeated it. Hoorah. However, we've been told that we cannot use it again until we found the source of the power of its simulator, which are these crystals that were coming from this mine. However, that mine had been taken over by a bunch of trolls. The last time we confronted these trolls, they successfully ambushed us because we're awesome like that. But we were eventually victorious, and we got all the crystals back, and we were basically giving a report to the Revenant, who sort of gave us the job. And Urgra said hi to her little friend Jojo, the lemur familiar of the Archmage Siphon. Kurt's got a little short with Master Siphon, and in response, Siphon turns him into a newt. And then,
I did nothing.
And then made him disappear. It's all online. You guys can judge for yourself. We welcome the comment. But yeah, so that's the cliffhanger we held off on. Kurt is a newt, and we don't know where he is at the moment. We are still in the room with Master Siphon.
Okay.
We're mostly in his good graces because we just completed a mission for him.
Yes.
So let's see how this works out.
And he gave you guys 600 gold pieces for clearing out the trolls. Alrighty. Now let's...
Alright, last time on episode 12 of Horsemen of the Apocalypse. We were in a bit of a situation. Kurtz had been turned into a newt by the Grand Master of Abjuration.
Siphon.
And he then, after being turned into a newt, was poofed away. So we didn't really know what was happening there. We immediately started to inquire to Archmage Siphon. We were told that Kurtz was in a location that was safe. And that's really all he gave us.
Okay.
Meanwhile, with her priorities super clear, Urgra began bartering for the Master's pet lemur, Jojo.
Okay.
Because her heartstrings had been pulled by not mistreatment, more neglect of just putting the lemur in a cage when he clearly needed some TLC.
Okay.
And so she traded away one of her lesser used magic items and also agreed to do the Master a favor at a later undisclosed time, and was given custody of said lemur Jojo.
Okay.
We, with no idea where Kurtz was, we decided to head towards the magnificent mansion of Rins. And in the meantime, Kurtz found himself on top of a giant stag, which we know affectionately as King. He was able to vamp out before he witnessed King and Queen do some bonding.
Yeah.
And
well, no. There were kids riding on top of them.
Hey, I mean,
don't go there.
Every orgy needs a witness.
Or it didn't happen.
But is it an orgy with just two?
No.
You see?
That is not an orgy at all.
You don't know.
But
you insult Connor and the definition of his orgies.
I am very...
this is why we have a disclaimer at the beginning of the show.
I am quite a prude about orgy etiquette, Dylan.
This is why we don't have ads.
The rule number one of orgies are... All right, so what else happened?
Dylan denutified himself, and on the way back to the mansion where he assumed we would be met, he picked up a weapon that he had contracted for the local artisan/blacksmith.
Okay.
And we actually first met up at Miss Honey's, where Rin picked up a scroll of Dispel Magic, which was a spell that he was very interested in learning, and now that is part of his repertoire. And we learned that Miss Honey had created a new concoction to sell called, well, actually we didn't know what it was called, she was looking for a name, but it was very good and very alcoholic. And so we decided to label it Liquid Gold. and we encouraged her to invest in this new product for the upcoming festival. And from there, we met at our mansion, and we headed towards the grand pre-battle meeting. What's it called? The Battle Council? War Council?
The War Council.
War Council, that's what it is. Where we met with all the leaders of the Shroud and the Bane, which included two dwarven brothers who publicly are known as Ironside and Grimtoe, as well as the head of Tabaxi, who simply goes by Fire.
Mm-hmm.
And with Ivan as well, who is the leader of Candoria, we discussed what the heck we're going to do about the horsemen that are arriving in 3 days at this point.
That was end of day 3, and you guys are
Yes.
expecting the end of day 7. Yeah.
So, to kind of be as brief as possible, we decided after some deliberation that the Revenant, the group of wizards in Candoria, would spread their wizards throughout the continent, because we don't know where the horseman is going to arrive and attack. So they will act as a sort of communication and relay it specifically to Rin, because the 4 of us, Candoria's greatest heroes, are going to basically be acting as the first response to wherever the horseman is. We are going to engage and gather intel and then retreat, and hopefully serve as enough of a distraction that wherever the horseman is attacking, we'll be able to evacuate and get the populace to safety.
Okay.
And other than that, Urbra brought up an idea that possibly the next horseman, because we've been told that after looking back, once the horseman has disappeared, people have realized that there's a certain pattern in nature and just going on in Candoria that sort of precluded what the horseman would be about.
Mm-hmm.
And so she brought up the fact that possibly, because we know that Tavaria has forbidden all forms of necromancy, that maybe this horseman has something to do with undead, and it is possibly making undead magic unpredictable or more dangerous than what it is. And so she is looking for a conversation with that. But for now, it looks like our heroes are headed to bed.
Okay, yes, so.
But last time, first thing I remember is that Rin had collected a scroll of Dispel Magic from a arcane wizard leader, Master Siphon, and he opened it to discover that, as opposed to being a scroll that traditionally in 5e, a wizard can learn and put in their spell book after a little bit of time, he realized that this spell was more of a glyph that allowed for a one-time casting, and that was it. Rin was a little peeved, and so he decided to postpone his long rest and immediately go to the office of said wizard, and being unable to persuade him that the spirit of the bargain should be upheld, withdrew and then cast a what's that monster called, AJ?
Gelatinous cube?
The gelatinous cube. We put it in his study for about 50 minutes and had it have a ball or have a cube.
Yeah.
And that was his little retort for that treatment. In the meanwhile, part of the deal to get that scroll was in fact for Urgra to get possession of Master Siphon's familiar Jojo, as well as giving Master Siphon a favor in the future. And Master Siphon said he'd be willing to rescind the deal and took back the scroll, but Urgra has not quite made her decision about whether to keep Jojo or not.
Okay.
Meanwhile, we had a long rest, and we found our old friend Bartho, and we discovered that due to our previous entering, we had found the power source to power the simulator, which would allow us to pretty much battle these crazy things from history and imagination. And we asked for something undead. He says, I can do that. And so we gathered all the people in the Candoria to basically make this a big spectacle to boost morale before the horseman arrived. And we took her on a lich, and we beat it really quick. And then we had another lich. We beat that one a little bit slower, because our fighter had learned through his abilities. And then we had 3 more. By that point, Finley was dead.
Yeah,
And that was a struggle.
I do feel a little guilty for that. I'm going to try to make sure Finley doesn't die next time.
That would be fantastic, Rin. Yeah, that'd be great.
But the end result is
Okay.
we came through using a combination of offensive and just like putting things off, like, no, you're banished. No,
Yeah.
you're in a bubble. God damn it, stay there. And eventually we were able to take care of the glitches, and we gained even more renown. And we were rewarded with a magical artifact, a serpent ring.
Mhm.
What did you call these specific artifacts, Sean?
So Rin knows a little bit about him. What have you found out about it, Rin?
Artifacts, ancient power, cannot discern the nature of it until you wear them and attune to them, but when you do, you may only attune to one at a time, and it is stuck to you for life until all charges are spent.
Okay.
Oh,
I can't remember what they're called.
We should test one out.
I mean, yeah. Well, no, Urgra's doing that. Urgra's like concentrating on the ring.
And Urgra did take the ring of the serpent, and she is currently attuning to it right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so we're going to see how that goes.
And you guys have the Nautilus necklace from before. Who has that one?
It may be in the bag of holding.
I think Finley might have it.
No, I have it. It's in the
You
back
have
of
it.
the
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, so no one has attuned to that one either yet?
no one's attuned to that one yet.
Okay.
And that's about all we got to. Last time, episode 14, we had just defeated the simulation that was set up for us. It was sort of set up as a morale booster for the city, and our team of 4 took on 5 liches, not at the same time, but still 5 liches, and only one of us died. Sorry, family. And anyways, as a reward, we got a magical ring, one of the Transedial artifacts. This was one of the serpents, and Urgra decided to attune to it and found out that apparently it has 3 charges, and once attuned to it, she cannot take it off until either she dies or the charges have been used up. No idea what the charges do, so that's something for later. Later, we came up to the Nuzzled Fox, the local bookstore, and our friend Ira, who is the owner, gave us a mysterious book, which was a journal belonging to a member of the Cult of Chaos, who we tangled with all the way back in Session 0. And he asked if we could check out this location of apparently a cache or something in the woods. So we decided to do that. And on our way out, Finley ran into a fellow bard named Adolphus, who apparently is a member of the Banff College. And Adolphus wasn't alone. He happened to be accompanied by 2 halflings, one of which was an old flame of Finley's named Delilah. And with her was a younger woman named Melody, who was heavily hinted could be a relation of Finley, or just his daughter, to put it bluntly. And Finley decided to put that on the back burner just a bit and had promised to meet them all for dinner, possibly to hash this out, to nail things down, and see where that goes. Meanwhile, Finley also had ordered a set of Captain America-inspired studded leather armor.
I'm so excited that.
Kurtz had finally sold the smoking bottle, and instead bought himself a warhorse, who he named Gale.
Okay.
You say Captain America inspired armor?
Yeah.
Does Captain America have a metal codpiece?
It's
Probably.
It's like the leather, and then I have a thing that pulls up, so it goes
It's
over.
Captain America. Remember that, all right?
Merca.
Okay.
Captain
Yeah.
Merca. Captain Kandurika.
The Finley shenanigan version.
I would do Myrrh. That's all he does. He just Myrrh.
So, having made dinner plans, we continued out of Pandoria into the woods, where we found the entrance to what looked like an extraplanar sort of dimension, composed of 3 floors of just these small rooms that each had a little moniker of a language that we recognized as being a cipher that was used by the Cult of Chaos. Unfortunately, all of our efforts were for naught, and we could not figure out what the heck it was. There's some sort of code where we can activate an orb in each room, and there's one locked door. However, despite attacking it using magic of all sorts, we were not able to proceed. And so we decided to put that on the back burner, and we are presently returning back to Pandoria proper to, I believe, we're going to see Ivan's speech, and it's not the oath today, it's tomorrow, correct?
It's tomorrow.
Okay, so yeah.
Yeah, so that's where we are caught up. Thank you for the recap.
Yeah, Connor, what happened last time?
Yeah, Connor.
Well,
Yeah, Connor.
Dylan.
Yeah, Connor.
Well, everyone, apparently. Episode 15. The first thing I have written down is that Urgra, and I think
Camera's
possibly Rin, went to talk to Tavaria to see if anything was, because we knew in this world necromancy had been completely outlawed by the church, who Tavaria is the head of. And Urgra had the suspicion that, as every horseman looking back, prior to their arrival, they had there were things happening in the world that sort of gave signals as to what the horseman's power was, whether it be undead, whether it be famine, that sort of thing. And Urgra was suspicious that possibly the reason that necromancy was outlawed was because possibly those spells were going wrong. She talked to Tavaria about this, and apparently she was barking up the wrong tree. And that was about the end of that. On a more entertaining note, Finley had his dinner with his long-lost daughter, Melody, after his old flame Delilah pretty much effed off.
As they do. As they seem to do in Finley's life. In one way or another, they all just F off, whether they're alive or dead. So, yep, great. Yep, continue. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Considering your current flame, though, that might not have been the best or the worst
that
option.
that ember has been burnt out.
Pretty much.
However, Finley did have a nice jam session with Melody. And in fact, I believe, did she give you her instrument, or was it the other way around?
She gave me her little ukulele, and I gave her my mini bag of holding to organize her clusterfuck of a bag of instruments that she had. So it was a little bit more organized.
Professional.
Yeah, professional, yeah.
So gifts were exchanged, and they left on a good note. Not perhaps parental and child, but, not hating each other.
Great.
It's a good first step. Then we came to the evening when it was time to take the warrior's oath. And when the oath was described, we realized, the players, that apparently we not only would be sworn to Candoria and its protection, but also to basically serve under the temple itself. Now, this raised a few eyebrows. Once this was said, Urgra actually immediately stepped forward and took the oath. A couple of adventures followed, and Finley eventually followed. However, Rin decided to send Nier in his place to take the oath, feeling that his convictions could not be sustained while taking such a constraining oath. And Kurtz donned his executioner's mask before he took the oath. And after that, let's see. Oh, we returned to the mansion after we had a couple of conversations where we discovered that Timmy apparently is not one of the ghosts that is haunting Kurtz. We're not entirely sure why of that, but Kurtz does have his other ghost looking for him, so worry not.
Because it was after the funeral. We had a funeral.
Yeah.
A pyre.
Sorry, it's a lot of notes here.
It's okay.
A lot of stuff happened. There was a lot.
So then we all eventually met back up at the manor, where Finley presented each of us with our own rather fancy robes and slippers.
And, thank you for not forgetting the slippers. That's a key note.
Spent precious silver pieces on those slippers.
Couldn't forget the slippers. However, we then proceeded to get a little bit shit-faced and opened up about our backstory, whereupon we learned of the parentage of Finley, or at least foster parentage.
Okay.
As well as the foster parentage of Urgra, and Rin's upcoming decision of whether to stay where he is or else to return to the elves and never be able to return again. That's the long and short of it. For the 2-hour version, go watch the episode on YouTube. But we eventually all went to sleep, and we woke up, got ready, and upon opening the door to the mansion, we found that the city was in utter chaos. There were dead bodies, and the only thing we heard was the sound of bells, which led us to the temple. Whereupon, we found a couple of our allies. Among the dead were Sebastian, Mrs. Honey, Violet, and Lizzie, and grievously wounded, barely hanging on to life with guts spilling out of them, and one of them having lost a leg, was Caldivar, Aaron, Ivan, and the one-armed Tabaxi Savage. And so we are out in front of the temple, having expected to actually see Tavaria bless the troops and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we have arrived to this, and that's where we are. Yeah, a little topsy-turvy. So, we woke up. A large part of this plot for this campaign has been the incoming horsemen. It was supposed to arrive at a certain date. It was supposed to follow a pattern, but lo and behold, the day before, we walk out of our magnificent mansion, and things have gone to shit. There's an orb of purple light surrounding the entire capital where we are staying. People are dead in the streets. We try to revive some of them from the dead. It doesn't work. So we hear church bells ring. We go towards the church, and suddenly, lo and behold, there is a horseman. And she is wielding a giant scythe. She is known as Death, with the horse Despair. She starts calling us thieves, and apparently is after the High Priestess Tavaria, who is one of the last few conduits to the goddesses in this world. And then there comes a fight. We do okay. You know, one of us dies, but you know, that's pretty good. And the rest of us run away. And
in mine and Kyle's defense, we were the only two dealing damage the entire fight.
BS.
Just saying. Side note.
I mean, he did spawn some what were they, methods, right? That
I did some method damage. I did some fucking getting Urga into the fray because Urga had shit for wisdom saving throws.
And she was frightened the whole time and couldn't get any closer.
I mean, where was that famous Finley talent to maybe perhaps, suppress the fear?
He was busy being an angel.
He could have been Chris Angel for us.
But just when things were looking really grim, all of us were teleported away, including the dead Kurtz, to a sort of limbo dimension where all there was stars and blackness and one large rotating crystal, which spoke to us with the voice of the long-lost prophet Alundra.
Okay.
We discussed with her, and she told us that she was taken away not by her own choice, and that she was going to be our guide, and we were essential by prophecy to try and correct things that have happened in the 20 years since she left. And she would try to guide us as best she could, but she would send us back in time to try and correct what had gone wrong and hopefully prevent the future that had happened.
That's right. So you are getting sent back.
All right, last time, episode 17, Horsemen of the Apocalypse. We had just made contact with Alundra, who apparently is going to be our patron and send us back in time after we barely escaped a confrontation with the final fourth horseman. And so she has told us that every year since the goddesses left, there has been a week where the Aurora Borealis, a annual occurrence of bright lights in the sky, occurred. And during that time, she would be allowed to send us, the four champions of destiny, back in time. And during that week, each year, we were responsible for finding out something that went wrong. And we had to somehow figure out how to correct it. And when we go back in time, naturally, our bodies go back to how they were during that time. So hence all of our bitching about being level 1, because we're in year 1.
Yeah. Okay.
And so we arrived at year 1 in what will eventually become King's Grove. And we looked a little different. Kurtz was missing his scars. Finley had a mullet. Urgra was 12 and had giant tusks that were too big for her, and her hair was completely out of control in an afro. Luckily, Kurtz apparently knows how to tame a kitchen and was able to give her some fun buns on either side.
Fun buns.
And
hashtag fun bun.
And so, having gotten ourselves together, we approached Candoria proper, and we discovered a old building that we never really noticed before that seemed abandoned in our normal timeline, appeared to be thriving as a gambling house. Okay. And outside was a shady human figure. After Kurtz and I did a little shopping to get some supplies, potions, and the like, we decided to go inside, whereupon we found that the gambling house was up and running, and they had a couple of games, but the main one was apparently geared towards adventurers, where you went inside, and there was a total just game of chance. There were 3 chests, and you had to open one of them, and you were trying to get coins. And one chest would always be empty, one chest would always have a coin, but one chest would always have this little black stone.
Mhm.
And it was told that if anyone collected 20 black stones, then something terrible would happen.
Okay.
And so eventually we talked to the guy outside because apparently he had done this before, and he had 19 black stones, and he was too afraid on the opportunity of collecting 20. He was afraid of what would happen. So he offered us the opportunity to, if we could give him 20 gold coins and give them to him, he would give us one of the blue balls that Finley has been very, very interested in.
Okay.
So,
Llama balls.
naturally, we couldn't refuse, and after some time trying to figure out the game, we figured out there were absolutely no tricks we could play. It was completely at random, and eventually we were able to get 20 plus gold coins, and we gave them to the guy, and he gave us the orb, and things were going great. And then Curse decided to see what would happen when one person got 20 of the black stones, and a giant mimic appeared.
Okay.
We did battle.
It's science, all right.
We did battle
Math and
inside the
science.
casino, and all the patrons ran away, including the workers. We eventually were able to beat the mimic without losing anyone, which was nice.
Okay.
And we then proceeded to turn the place over. Urga was able to go into the back where apparently some magic items that were being used as
Mhm.
prizes in some of the other games were held, and she got a longbow of warning.
Yep.
And now we were able to get one of the other workers, a girl named Tiffany, who told us that apparently the owners of the establishment were actually rather shifty,
Mhm.
and when they came to check on the establishment, they would always wear these masquerade masks, completely obscuring their features, as well as feathered cloaks.
Yep.
And we immediately recognized this as a very similar garb to members of what is known as the Cult of Chaos, all the way back in Session 0.
Right. Throwback time. Okay.
Yep. And so we now are very interested in this little establishment. For one, being able to hand out magical items just for gambling, which seems a little crazy,
Mm-hmm.
but also because Cult of Chaos, we have learned, is not a good thing. And
Okay.
so we have decided to stage a stakeout,
Okay.
which could be made even easier because even when the mimic attacked us and we actually had a person die,
Yep.
there were no guards who came to this establishment. They just think that the guards are on the payroll and this place is sort of supposed to be just left alone. And we later found out that apparently throughout the day when this game had been held, there have been several deaths.
Yep.
And stuff just kept on going. And so we are planning to stake out and possibly try and figure out what is going on in Candoria proper, who's in charge, who is leading, who can we possibly get as an ally for our week here. And that's where we left off. All right. So last time, we had just left a gambling house where apparently one of the games turned fatal, where apparently if you lost too many times, you would summon a mimic who would try to eat you, as it almost did us. However, we were successful, and we turned the place over for the treasure that we could find, and we discovered that apparently the guards don't come here to check on things, which was rather curious. So we did a stakeout. We watched for a while, and we found one mysterious man came by the back of the casino and dropped off a box, but he got away before we could get a hold of him. We opened the box, and we found that it was some sort of music box. And apparently when we started the music, a flower on top of it opened, revealing sort of like a snow globe thing with a tiny dancer inside that would spin. And lo and behold, this dancer could talk, and apparently was some sort of trapped fairy.
Okay.
Apparently she belongs or works for the Waterfall Fairy, who we had discovered in the future, so we know where she is. And we decided to kind of put a pin in that, and we left AJ's familiar Orion, right?
Mhm.
To keep watch while we visited the temple, because we weren't entirely sure who was in charge of things in Candoria at the moment, as well as we'd heard that Tavaria is starting to take power. We wanted to try and get a grip on that. So we had a bit of a conversation with Tavaria, as well as someone who was not very happy with her taking power, named Naya Lynn, a fellow sister of the three sisters, who was trying to push forward Alundra's previous teachings of unity and keeping things the way they were. And as Alundra had only disappeared a year ago,
Nyland was very against even anyone taking up the title of head priest, because Alundra could still conceivably come back, even though we know that she doesn't.
Right.
And so we got told about a new ceremony that was supposed to happen, the washing of the rocks. Each of the goddesses, the three sisters, have this rock that's sort of dedicated to them, and it is an annual ceremony to wash them, to show praise, reverence, all that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually our party got roped into getting the water to wash the rocks that has to be from this very specific pool or waterfall called the Tears of the Goddesses.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently that place had been overrun with frog people.
Mm-hmm.
So we set out. We met a bugbear merchant on the way named Pugnose, who was suffering from some seasonal allergies. I know. But he offered us a second, not the blue orb. He offered us a piece of a stone tablet
Mm-hmm.
that apparently meant something to Kurtz. And Kurtz was very interested in us obtaining it, so we decided to get a natural cure for his allergies on the way to killing the frogs, which we did, with one slight fatality of Kurtz, who got Kermited in the throat and just went down. Couldn't handle it. Yeah.
But that wasn't at least that wasn't to the sap. That was just the frogs. Just
the frogs.
Just the frogs.
But we got him back up, and we proceeded to the tree that held the...
Oh no.
What did it hold?
What happened?
Next!
That held a harpy, and we fought the harpy and took the sap.
Oh, he's back.
He's back.
Okay. I could hear you guys.
Uh-oh.
Oh no.
Harpy got the sap.
Okay, we got the sap. Okay.
You're back. You're good.
We got the sap, and we had some conversation. We came back to Gandoria.
Yeah, we did.
So, you're heading back to Pandora, and Dan, you guys...
finish. Good strong finish.
You hurry up, you did lots of RP at the end, and then we did lots of...
Okay, bye.
Awesome.
So last week, our dear wizard Rin came up with the idea that, hey, we're from the future, so why don't we use that knowledge to our advantage? So we realized that the day one that we arrived, the Aurora Borealis is going to show up for the first time. And since we have teleportation circles at our disposal, why don't we go to every single powerful faction in this country and, earn some favor saying, hey, we're prophets, we're from the future, and here's proof. And so we split up 4 different ways. Urgra went to the Tabaxi, Finley went to the Bane or the Dwarves, Rin went to the Revenant, and Kurtz went to Tavaria, the head of the church.
Okay.
Now, most of these went pretty well. Rin was not allowed to see the head of the Revenant due to his blood status. Urga was allowed to talk to at least one of the head members of the Tabaxi and was passed along her message, and that went pretty well. Finley arrived outside of a town. What is it, Herberdurken? Or something like that? Herbergergen. A little halfling town that apparently was currently under assault from a bandit clan. So he is trying to figure out that, and he has gone back to get all of us back together for reinforcements. However, it was Kurtz who had the most surprising thing when he talked to his old friend Tavaria, who he helped, who we grew up with. He's known her since a child. He explained his future knowledge of the Aurora Borealis and actually produced a stone, or a piece of a stone tablet. And upon seeing that, Tavaria lifted her staff, and everything for Kurtz went black. Now, at this point, the rest of the party is all together, that is, except for Kurtz, and we have just been told by a bystander that she recently saw Kurtz, and we're going to find out where the heck that leads. Because we don't know where he is, because we were separated 4 different ways.
I don't know where I am either.
Have you seen this Kurtz?
Have you seen this Kurtz?
Have you seen this, man? Awesome.
There you go. There, it showed up better that time.
So where exactly were you?
Well, last week, on Season 20 of Horsemen of the Apocalypse, Kurtz woke up imprisoned by Tavaria, the new head of the temple, after telling her about his knowledge of the future events, as well as showing her a piece of an ancient tablet. Through a very careful conversation, Kurtz discovered that this tablet was gifted by the goddesses to Alundra and Tavaria. However, Tavaria was unable to read it, and she didn't know what information the tablet contained. The tablet was shattered by Alundra to 7 pieces and then scattered across Candoria before she left in year 0. By the end of the conversation, Tavaria and Kurtz had come to an agreement. Tavaria would release Kurtz with all of his equipment, including the tablet fragment, and in return, just let me finish. And in return, Kurtz agreed to be the captain of the Temple Guard with 1 week off, and agreed to not tell anyone of his knowledge of the future. After being released, Kurtz met up with the rest of the party, and we traveled to HotA with the help of some shenanigans trademarked. We were able to defeat the bandit clan with only one of them getting away. We were then treated to dinner with Ford, and Finley was inducted into Vamp by the leader Adorphus. And then the heroes settled down for a long rest with Urgra inviting Rin to observe an orcish ritual at dawn.
Okay.